He only arrived this morning.
And today, Master Program in International Relations and Diplomacy from University is going to organize a special talk program on U.S. foreign policy to South Asia. We have a special guest from the United States, His Excellency Atul Keshap. He is Assistant Secretary for South Asia, and I would like to welcome His Excellency Atul Keshap and Sujan and some other embassy officials from U.S. Embassy in Kathmandu. And we have senior faculty here, my teachers and my friends and my students. So, before I call our special guest today to deliver his lecture, I would like to say something about this program and bios of our guest. Tribhuvan University has launched this program since February 2014. It is just a kind of infant academic program, and we have been running classes here in this school for the last 4 months. And this program is interdisciplinary discourse academic program, and everyone can apply. Those who got undergrad on every discipline. So we have 45 to 50 students, and we have regular classes, and it's kind of two years, 4 semester program. And we often invite foreign and domestic guest lecturers, especially those who are involved with the academia and diplomatic services. And today we have a special guest, and please let me allow to speak to say His Excellency's bios. Atul Keshap, Deputy Assistant Secretary for South Asia, Bureau of South Asia and National Asian Affairs. Atul Keshap is a career United States Foreign Policy Service officer from Virginia, currently serving as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia. In his current role, Keshap works closely with Assistant Secretary of State Nisha Bishal to coordinate U.S. government policy towards India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Maldives, and Bhutan, comprising a diverse and strategic region of almost 1.5 billion people and over $2 trillion in economic output. Prior to his current assignment, Keshap was the United States Senior Officer for Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, APEC, a trade body whose members generate 55% of global GDP. In that capacity, he was responsible for U.S. policy initiative during the Russia and Indonesia worst years, and served concurrently as the Assistant Secretary of State Kurt Campbell's Coordinator for Economic Policy in the Bureau of East Asia and Public Affairs. Mr. Keshap was posted as the Deputy Minister of Council for Political Affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Delhi, India from 2005 to 2008, where he served as one of the Ambassador David Murford's principal advisors on the U.S.-India Civilian and Nuclear Energy Cooperation Initiative, which was a very important discourse in South Asia. And also hope to implement the broader strategic partnership with India at all levels in close coordination with the Indian government and while managing a larger political reporting and outreach team. From 2003 to 2004, Keshap served as the Director for North Asia, Africa and Middle Eastern Regional Affairs at the National Security Council staff in the Executive Office of the President. Originally from Virginia, Keshap has also lived in Nigeria, Lesotho, Afghanistan, Zambia, and Austria. He is a graduate of the University of Virginia, where he received a bachelor's and master's degree. While he concentrated on economics and international relations, and diplomacy and regional study, as well as French. Keshap has working proficiency in French and speaks conversational Hindi and some Vietnamese as well. These are all his very brief bios, because I have tried to make certain of his 2 pages long bios. And now I would like to welcome our chief guest, His Excellency Atul Keshap, and his class.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate that we have such a good turnout today. So I think what I'll do is I'll speak for a few minutes and give you a sense of my priorities, and then I'd like to hear from you and we can have a very informal and interactive exchange of views, and I'll happily try to answer any of your questions that you might have. As was said earlier, I've spent the last year before this job working on integrating the trade and economic relationships of the Asia-Pacific countries. And now, working in this current job, I'm focusing on connectivity and economic integration among South Asian economies. So if you don't mind, I'm going to start and give you a few perspectives, and then we'll have a more interactive discussion. First of all, let me say to you how very happy I am to be back in Kathmandu. I haven't been here in 3 years, so it's great to be back. The city looks great. I saw the mountains on the plain as I came in, and it reminded me of the immense beauty of Nepal and the legendary beauty of Nepal. I was telling people in Washington just the other day where I was going, and when I told them I was going to Kathmandu, they all got a sort of a romantic look in their eyes and said, wow, Nepal, to be lucky enough to go to Nepal. So I'm delighted to be here, and I must say that it's been 3 very eventful and very important years in Nepal's history since my last visit. If you think about it, very few countries can claim with very rightful credit, I would say, that they have been able to transition from monarchy, end a bloody civil war, and launch a new democracy, all within the space of a very short period of time. And this is an achievement of the Nepalese people that I think resounds all around the world and has certainly impressed many people in the United States. From our perspective in Washington, it's also impressive to see all of the many achievements that keep happening in Nepal. For instance, there was the successful election of the new Constituent Assembly, which was a key moment in which the Nepalese people demonstrated their commitment to democracy. I was amazed to see that 78% of the electorate voted. That is a real credential for the people of Nepal. That is something about which every single person in this country should feel very, very proud. And it puts Nepal right in the front ranks of countries that believe passionately in democracy, particularly in the South Asian region. So I'd say congratulations to all of you for the turnout and for the very robust dedication to democratic values. If you would permit me, I'll also share a little bit of perspective on sort of where I think the United States is focusing in Asia. I feel passionately that Asia is full of opportunity, replete with opportunity. If you draw a circle around China and India and Southeast Asia, if you draw in your mind, if you think about the globe, the map of the world, if you draw a big circle that encompasses China, South Asia, including India, and all of Indonesia and Southeast Asia and Japan and Philippines, there are more people inside that circle than there are outside that circle living in the entire rest of the world. So what's happening in this part of the world is extremely important. Asia has a growing youthful population and vastly increasing economic development. Asia is rightfully gaining the attention it deserves. The United States is working with our partners throughout the region, including Nepal, to help unleash the economic opportunity that is inherent in Asia today. President Obama and Secretary Kerry have said that the United States will play a larger and long-term role in shaping this region and its future. Currently, South Asia is experiencing a wave of incredible change and transition that is manifested more than anything else through the recent elections that have taken place throughout the region. Like Nepal, India recently held an election in which over 550 million people participated. In addition, there have been elections recently in Maldives, in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, and of course here in Nepal. So South Asia throughout has shown its dedication to democratic government, to government by the people, for the people. And the United States is looking forward to working with all of these governments all across South Asia to strengthen and reinforce democratic values. We believe that there is a great deal of untapped human and economic potential in the region writ large, but specifically also here in Nepal. And we believe that now is an excellent time for the people of Nepal to begin realizing their economic potential. If you think about it, South Asia has absolutely limitless potential. Economic studies have indicated that for a very long period of time, South Asia led the entire world in GDP. If you look back to studies done by English economists about the relative size of the Mughal Empire, for instance, compared to the regions in the world. When I think back through my career, I was born in West Africa. West Africa has ECOWAS, which is a very tight coordination of the economic prosperity of the West African states. I grew up in Southern Africa. Southern Africa has SADC, which is another community dedicated toward the economic integration of the Southern African states. I spent time in East Africa. There you also have the East African Economic Union. If you look at Europe, you have the EU and the whole process of European economic integration. I was most recently working on Asia Pacific, where you have institutions like APEC and the Trans-Pacific Partnership that are working to bring the countries of the Asia Pacific region closer and closer together economically. I just transited through Doha. You have the Gulf Cooperation Council trying to create a single market within the Gulf. And the examples continue on and on and on. And yet, in South Asia, in the region that for many, many centuries was the most productive in the entire world, with the largest GDP share of any region in the entire world, we face a situation right now where intra-regional trade flows are under 5%, and intra-regional investment flows are under 1%. So close to zero as to be almost effectively zero. I think we all have to ask ourselves, why is this? To put this very simply, this means that South Asians are not trading with one another, and they are not investing in one another's projects. So while the world is getting smaller, and while regions all around the world are enhancing their economic connectivity, the distance between South Asian countries is lamentably remaining the same. Individually, we see South Asian countries doing so very well. There's incredible economic diversity, there's extraordinary human capital, there's tremendous natural resources, and we believe in the United States that if the countries of South Asia traded with each other and invested with each other and in each other's countries, we would see this growth become even higher. If Nepal were to buy things from Bangladesh that Bangladesh is good at making, if Bangladesh were to buy from Nepal what Nepal has a comparative advantage in, if from Pakistan, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, if there were more trade across the entire region, greater integration, a better framework in which nations' comparative advantages can achieve their full potential, we believe that it would lift growth and prosperity throughout the entire region. So we believe that while there is healthy growth right now, we would like to see effective, sustained policy choices by leaders throughout the South Asian region that would put growth up to an entirely new level and would create tremendous new economic opportunity and prosperity and lift tens of millions of more people out of poverty. We would also like to see more travel across borders. Instead of exporting so many workers to the Gulf, for instance, more workers could remain in India and Nepal and Bangladesh and could put their efforts and their energy and their activity to building the future of South Asia. South Asia, I believe, and I think most in Washington believe, can reap the benefits of increased connectivity which trade, technology, and regional economic integration offers. A more integrated South Asia is one in which the markets, economies, and people can connect and thrive and prosper. If you look at our own neighborhood in the United States, the North American Free Trade Agreement has created a single unified trading zone comprising the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and it has been to the mutual benefit of all three countries, and it has been to the mutual benefit of the employment situation, of the GDP, of the prosperity, of the infrastructure linkages of all three countries. When we work together, we believe that we all benefit and we can all thrive. Let me talk for a minute about hydroelectric power. When you think of Nepal's comparative advantages, I think, of course, of its enormous human capacity and potential. I think of its beautiful tourism opportunities, but I also think about hydroelectric power. We feel that the greatest opportunity, perhaps, for regional integration is nowhere more evident than in the energy sector. With 42,000 megawatts of commercially viable potential, Nepal's hydropower could eventually provide not only an abundant source of clean energy for the people and industries of Nepal, but also provide a major boost to investment and economic growth in this country and produce a sizable surplus that can be exported to energy-poor countries throughout the region. Time and again, we hear about interest from all around the world, and particularly from this region, about developing Nepal's vast hydroelectric potential for the benefit of Nepal and for the benefit of the neighborhood. So my question to you is, how can we realize this potential? It is going to take a lot of hard work by the people of Nepal and by your neighbors. To begin with, it would require a power trade agreement, first with India, and then among countries within the region. It would also require these countries to cooperatively manage and share the benefits of these transboundary river basins. And it will require a better electrical transmission grid and the development of a business environment here in Nepal that features market-based pricing and streamlined government, including strong oversight and regulation. This is not going to be easy. Frankly, it's going to be very complicated and it will take a lot of time. The last requirement, improving the business environment, may be harder than anything else. And it will require some changes in attitudes. I suspect that there will be red tape that needs to be dealt with, but I believe that the rewards for Nepal and the rewards for the region and the rewards for the people of Nepal can be significant if the hydroelectric sector can be properly deployed as a national asset in which the people of Nepal and the government and country of Nepal have a strong comparative advantage. You might ask yourself, why does the United States care about this? What does the United States get out of this? And that's a very good question. I think that, of course, there is the narrow answer, which is that if the countries of this region can continue to grow economically, it provides market opportunities for American companies. But I think also, and more importantly, that open markets and vibrant international trade lead to prosperity, development, peace, security, and democracy. And at the end of the day, that is what Americans care about. If we can see more interconnected, more integrated regional economic approaches that result in enhanced prosperity for the people of Nepal and for the people of the entire region, we believe that it will enhance stability, prosperity, security, peace, and democracy. And these are all things that are good for the American people, and they are good for your people. 70% of the population of Nepal is under 35. And 2,000 Nepalese citizens leave this country every day to work abroad. Remittances account for about 30% of Nepal's GDP. Your talent, your great human potential is going overseas to help build other countries. And if you can create conditions here where that talent stays here and helps build and develop Nepal, Nepal's infrastructure, Nepal's energy grid, Nepal's industries, then it would be to the benefit of all of Nepal, of all the people of Nepal. There's about $88 million per year that the United States government spends in Nepal on assistance in trying to build prosperity in this country and create the necessary conditions for the advancement of all of the Nepalese people. By focusing on President Obama's key priorities of maternal and child health care, combating climate change, and increasing food security, the U.S. government is making a significant and sustained investment in Nepal's future, and we have been doing so for 63 years. We recognize that there are political challenges. We understand that the drafting of the Constitution is understandably a top priority, but there are many other priorities as well. Economic growth, however, must also be a priority. So even as a Constitution is drafted, and as other aspects of the peace process, such as the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, are concluded, I don't believe that Nepal or any country can ignore the need to ensure robust economic growth. You have a young population. We all have populations and voters that have aspirations. It's important to engender policies now that can result in strong growth into the future. But the good news is that government is only part of the solution. South Asia has a wealth of entrepreneurial talent, and all it needs is a little bit of support and encouragement from government in order to spark that talent and put it to work. So, I've talked a little bit about my perspectives from Washington on Nepal. I think what I'd like to do now is maybe take your questions about Nepal, about the broader region, and about anything and everything that might be on your mind. But I hope that these thoughts have given you an opportunity as well to think a little bit and reflect upon what vision you have for the future of Nepal, about what vision you want to implement during the course of your lives for the people and country of Nepal. What will Nepal look like in 30 years? Will it be a country with robust and growing GDP? Will it be a country with solid middle income, per capita income? Will it be a country where people stay in Nepal and contribute to the development and prosperity of Nepal? Will it be a country with enhanced environmental standards, enhanced infrastructure, billions of dollars of investment in the hydroelectric power sector? Will it be a country that can look at all of its neighbors in the region and say, we are not only connected to them, but we have met or even surpassed their own records of economic growth? I personally believe that given the economic potential of this country, given the human potential of this country, given the entrepreneurial talent of this country, you can achieve anything if you set your mind to it. But the first thing and the most essential ingredient is to have a bold vision. So in closing, I would like to implore you to consider what bold vision of Nepal you can think of, and then think about what you can do to implement that bold vision. And I can assure you, from the Washington perspective, on behalf of Ambassador Bodhi and his entire team here in Kathmandu, that we will be your friends, we will be your most ardent supporters, and we will be ready to assist in any way possible to achieve a bold vision for the future of Nepal. Thank you all very much.
Ask very sharp questions, straightforward, and His Excellency will answer individually. Okay, please come up. Raise your hand and introduce yourself and come up with your question.
I think I put them all to sleep.
Convinced everyone.
My curiosity to you is that often in this part of world, in particular talking about Nepal, it is allegedly said that US's Washington perspective towards the Nepal is not its original perspective. It is shaped by someone else's perspective, especially talking about the politics. And so you talked about the economic development and economic prosperity, and so in this changing power shift, and when India is rising as a second superpower in economy. So, what is your take on this issue that it will be continue to see Nepal from the perspective of others' perspective, or USA will have some special perspective to treat Nepal?
We have a very robust embassy team here in Kathmandu, and they keep a very good dialogue going with Nepalese from every walk of life, every religious and ethnic background, every geographic area of the country, because we don't really, pay attention to what others might be saying. We want to know what we think. And so our partnership with the people of Nepal goes back 6 or 7 decades, right back to 1947, when the U.S. established diplomatic relations with Nepal. We've had a continuous embassy presence here, and we have Peace Corps, we have USAID, we have so many different elements to our relationship with Nepal, because we care about the Nepalese people, and we care about developing a good, solid understanding of what is going on in Nepal. And so you have world-class experts within the U.S. government, like Ambassador Bodhi, who have served multiple assignments here in Nepal, because they care passionately about this country, and they care about its economic development, and they care about its future. So from my perspective, it's less important to think about what others think about Nepal. It's more important to think about what we think and what we can do together. This is the U.S.-Nepal relationship that I'm focused on. It's part of my job back in Washington, and I have a very bold vision of Nepal. And I think Ambassador Bodhi enthusiastically has led in articulating what he thinks that vision should be. And I would hope that more and more Nepalese people would attach themselves to a strong and bold vision of what Nepal can be in the future. This country has enormous strength. It just has to decide to realize that strength.
My query to you is US is a superpower in almost every sector, in almost global arena. We Nepalese are still in transition, especially in political stability process by drafting constitution assembly. And we have so many hurdles on the way. Political leaders are almost in complex dilemma. Yes, they are perplexed in terms of ideological differences as well as their personal interest, political interests as well. And two giant economically boomed countries are there in our two sides, and we are still creeping in a very slow economic growth rate. And lots of youth are going abroad. As you have already mentioned, almost 2,000 per day going abroad for security, for economic security, for job searching. And what, as you mentioned about the bold decision that Nepal should take, and US will obviously support on that bold decision. First, I think Nepal should be politically stabilized and on the way of democracy. Before doing that, lots of things are still there, and people are not in a proper way. What bold decision that you could see that Nepal should apply in terms of economic prosperity? As you yourself is a very expert in terms of economic cooperation, economic support as well. That's my point.
So that's that there is a political process underway that will take its own time to come to conclusion. And that is a necessary and essential ingredient in Nepal's future prosperity. But we feel as well that decisions can also be taken to unleash the economic potential and to enhance economic growth in this country. Economic growth is the most reliable way to lift people's standards of living, to enhance health care, to enhance daily lives, and to lift millions of people out of poverty. So my suggestion, my humble suggestion would be, think about ways to leverage Nepal's comparative advantage now in ways that can generate real dividends for the Nepalese people now. Now, we talked about hydroelectric potential. Obviously, that cannot happen overnight. That requires an investment climate, and it requires a set of policies that will attract billions of dollars from all around the world. But Nepal has an enormous capability in this field, and right now it is almost totally undeveloped. So I would say that even as the political situation continues, the economic progress can take place. There is a almost totally unrealized potential in hydroelectric. You have markets just to the south of you that are crying out for power. And those markets are starting to look at nuclear, they're looking at renewables, they're looking at thermal, they're looking at all of the different pieces of the energy pie. But they're also looking at renewables, hydroelectric, and they are seriously looking at grid-tie connectivity and all of the things that create the conditions that allow for real sustained industrialization and investment, even in Nepal. If Nepal has cheap and plentiful access to power through hydroelectric, for instance, you may well see manufacturing coming here. But without power, without tremendous amounts of readily available, stable, predictable power, you can never attract manufacturing investment. So I would say really study that. That would be the one thing that if you don't develop it for another 10, 15 years, it's just wasted for all time in the life of the history of this country. So I would say look at that and see what can be done because it's a resource that is right at your doorstep. Obviously, I would add, it's important to do it in an environmentally sensitive way because there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do dams and hydroelectric. And there's a lot of study that's been done on how to exploit the run-of-the-river hydroelectric potential without creating disturbing environmental side effects. And so Nepal can benefit, frankly, from 5 or 6 decades of experience all around the world because it hasn't yet really built up that hydroelectric capability.
Our leaders have been saying that we've been hearing our leader who say that economic stability prosperity is something we cannot get until and unless there is political stability. And since this region, overall region, and Nepal is troubled in terms of political stability, I think you have focused mostly on the economic prosperity. So I would like to be more specific. Can we really achieve economic prosperity at the point of time when our political situation is vulnerable? And can that be achieved within the South Asian countries, overall South Asian countries as well?
I think there's an historic opportunity here. If you look at Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's visit to India the other day, it proves that a new wind is blowing in South Asia, that everybody understands that economic connectivity is the name of the game, that in the long run, as economists say, we're all dead, right? An action that isn't taken today to yield a result today is an action that is lost for all time. You will never get that moment back. So why delay 50 more years? Let's move ahead on South Asian economic integration. Let's move ahead on achieving the real potential of India and Pakistan trade, India-Bangladesh trade, India-Nepal trade, India-Southeast Asia trade, Bangladesh-Myanmar trade. You know, as I said in my remarks, South Asia is the least economically integrated region in the entire world. So I do feel a new wind is blowing. And I keep hearing in Dhaka, in Colombo, in Delhi, and even from Islamabad, that people realize that the status quo is unacceptable. That it has kept too many people in poverty, and it runs contrary to the prevailing trends all around the world. So I would say if we let politics drive us, then we can use it as a convenient excuse to do nothing. But what we have to think of is the well-being of our people, right? All of our people. And so we have difficult politics in the United States. Ours is a very messy and robust democracy. You have many different voices that have many different views. But at the end of the day, there has to be a consensus to keep moving forward, despite whatever political issue might be out there, in ways that are intelligent and that are good for the people of the country.
Talk about the economic resources, about the huge amount of the huge part of the natural resources present in this country. But the irony is that if we see the budget spent by the agencies, the Washington-based agencies like the USAID, the major part of your budget is spent on the issues like on the social sector, like the child rights, like the human rights, like the democracy building, like in the inclusion. But instead of spending your money on such sector, once the US-based agency spend money on Hydropower project, but it was not beneficial for the context of Nepal. If you had spent the bulk of money you spend in the child rights, in the construction of the road, or in the infrastructure development, it would be more beneficial economically for the country like Nepal. Why is this irony present? The difference in the voice and the difference in the action.
To come into Nepal to invest in areas that have a proven potential for economic return on investment. All right, USAID is working on development issues. Okay, all Nepal needs is effective regulation, effective governance, and an effective investment regime. And there are trillions of dollars of money all around the world in the private sector that will come and find you. You don't need the U.S. government competing in business. What you need to do is have an effective investment climate and predictable regulations, transparent rule of law. And there is so much private sector money out there looking for bankable projects that it will come to you. The U.S. government will work on maternal and child welfare. It will work on helping farmers develop better crops. It will work on trying to lift up people who need the most help, because that's what we do in our development work. But when you want to see private sector come here, and we do believe that the government should not have a role in doing business and industrial and investment projects, that is best left to the private sector, because private sector capital is better able to pick winners and losers than government bureaucrats. If you've got a good business plan and you've got a good regulatory environment, money will come here in droves. You need only look at what's happening in India right now to see hundreds of billions of dollars flowing into the Indian stock market in anticipation of expanded growth in India. So that can happen here as well if the policy mix is such that private sector investors see Nepal through new eyes and see real potential here. Thank you.
I think because of time constraint, we have to almost wrap up this session. And again, I would like to express our sincere thankfulness to His Excellency and U.S. Missions team and distinguished guest today. Those who are here all the way from their half business and assignment and because it's working hard. So thank you very much once again, and thank you very much for coming all the way from your busy schedule. And this is the kind of synergy for our department. Please go ahead. Thank you very much.
One more?
Thank you.
Simple. That's where we're here.
Thank you.
Next one. Thank you for